The chair will next call case number 006133, 209 Broadway. Anyone here wish to be heard?
Good evening, Mr. Chair.
Good evening.
Honorable members of the board. I'm Anthony Galuccio, attorney for Peter Lee, the applicant for relief. I'm joined by the architect, Jai. Quick recap. At the last hearing, following up on two previous hearings, we were asked to take a further look at the project. In summary, we attempted to address concerns about the Broadway edge. Just to kind of sum up how the project has evolved, we started with 6 units, and we were asked to take a look at that, so we reduced it to 5. Generally, what has happened is much of the massing has moved underground, just to reduce the size of the above-grade massing. We also initially had asked for open space relief. The architects have done a great job increasing open space really along the neighborhood edge, thereby allowing us to eliminate the need for open space relief. So we're over the required open space, which is good just from a legal standpoint, but I also think it's been something the neighborhood has liked because we've been able to open it up along that neighborhood edge.
Better for the neighborhood point.
Correct. I don't want to repeat previous things. We're compliant with every aspect of the zoning code other than setback, and we're asking to have setback relief, which would be commensurate with commercial setbacks where there is no setback required for this zone. But I asked Jai just to talk about the changes that we've made. We did create a page that showed the evolution of that, particularly that edge that we were asked to focus on. So
I'm going to stand up just because it's easier to present. Rather than going and rehashing everything, I think you're familiar with the case. This is where we started in March, this is where we were in July, and this is where we are now. And the concern that the board had expressed that we understood was that they wanted the prominence of this corner reduced. We went to a scheme that squared it off, which was found to be aesthetically not as pleasing. We went back and rounded it off, and we actually pulled the top deck back even more to open up the corner space visually. So this green part here is your top deck, which we're not counting as open space, but it's a large deck. You've got your green and gray here, and your compliant open space here. And part of the evolution of this is the driveway scooted down a little bit so that we can pick up the compliant open space down on Clark Street. I think the other things we did to the building was we changed the detailing on the top floor to a panel system with battens. We changed the color of it to lighten it up, and substantially reduce the scale and the scale of the cornice on the prow edge of the property that's closest to Kendall, the Kendall edge of the property. So that was complying with the board's requests. I think we finally got it right. The other thing we did is we reduced the above ground FAR. We've shrunk the footprint to some extent. And another thing we did as well is we opened up. Originally we had decked over this area here. We removed the deck from that area so it's a driveway between the buildings with some bays and other projections in that area. In terms of landscape, you can see the progression of the landscape plan.
Which is okay.
This is the most recent. This was the previous. That was the first. You can see we've made an attempt to open up the corner again. We have compliant yards down on this end of the property. The overall deck above has been removed in this area here. We do have some smaller balconies and bays in that area now.
Green or landscaping and the prow. Right.
Well, right here we have it. We don't own that. That's the city land.
Oh, that's city land.
I mean, if the city wants us to put trees or something there, we certainly can do that.
Okay, I didn't know.
You know, the hasty pudding, they keep cutting down the tree at the end of the prow. So, But, yeah, we just don't up to here, but we are reinforcing with street trees along here, putting in additional new street trees and grading, meeting the Broadway corridor master plan for the landscape. Okay. If you'd like me to go into any other details on it, I'm happy to, but this was really where we left off last time and what the areas of conversation were around.
Members of the board want further details? No?
Okay, thank you.
That's it. Mr. Chair, you and the board were very helpful early on, suggesting we do some additional reconnaissance with the neighborhood. We had done that in the neighborhood meeting. There was general support for the previous plan. I think you all understand the state of the property and what's at stake. We've continued to stay in touch with neighbors, and we feel that it's an even better plan than we once had, so we appreciate all your input, and we still have general support from the community. I think they're getting anxious. There is some gas tanks there. This project has been challenging because of some of those issues, which have, I think we've had some great interactions where we've conveyed there's been some tension just because of those issues. But we're anxious to move forward and get the tanks out and hopefully create a nice residential project for the community.
Thank you. Questions from members of the board? I'm going to open the matter up to public testimony. Is there anyone here wishing to be heard on this matter? Apparently there is no one here wishing to be heard. I don't think we have any. I'm sorry, I didn't see you. I'm sorry, sir.
I just want to reiterate
Your name and address.
Martin Jakowski, Jukobsky, 220 Broadway, Cambridge. I just want to reiterate what I've said before, that this would be a welcome addition to our community, and I've seen the latest plans, and it's quite lovely, and it's sort of outstanding compared to all the office buildings that are out of scale around us. So I would urge that it be approved to go forward.
Thank you, sir. Just checking quickly. I don't think there are any new letters in the file from our earlier hearing. If so, I'd put them in the record. Let me just check. Apparently not. So there's no other public testimony. I'm going to close public testimony. Discussion from members of the board? No. Okay. All right. I will now make a motion. Let's see how the vote goes. The chair moves that we make the following findings with regard to the variance being sought. That a literal enforcement of the provision of the ordinance involves substantial hardship. The hardship being that this site is a very difficult site, and therefore the hardship would be undeveloped, and the land would continue as a derelict and abandoned gasoline station. That the hardship is owing to the shape of the lot, quite clearly. It's a very unusually shaped lot, which in turn makes development very difficult. And that desirable relief may be granted without substantial detriment to the public good or nullifying or substantially derogating the intent or purpose of this ordinance. In regard, the chair would note that the petitioner has worked diligently to come up with plans that meet neighborhood objections or comments and ours. And after 3 tries, come up with their final proposal. So, on the basis of these findings, the chair moves that we grant the variance sought on the condition that the work proceed in accordance with plans submitted by the petitioner, prepared by KALSA, K-H-A-L-S-A Design Inc. They're dated July 22nd, 2015. There's multiple pages of the plans, at the first page of which is initialed by the chair. And in that connection, in particular, with regard to the landscaping that's shown on these plans, that the petitioner is required to fulfill those landscaping designs that are on these plans.
Question for clarification. You mentioned that the plans are dated July. The plans dated July will include the latest version of the design.
Yes, I do.
I think that was my
The landscape plan is July 30, so something after July 22.
Okay, I just went from the first page, the cover page.
Right, yeah.
I can initial each page, so maybe that's
Do
safer.
we want to put today's date on all of them or something?
The date is not important, we're going to initial
Okay,
pages, so we
fine.
have a record of what it is we approved.
Thank you.
Just give me a second. These pages were, by the way, were on my copy, were misassembled. They're upside down, every other page.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nerves.
Just trying to see whether we're going to actually read the plans or not, we're not testing it.
The plans have changed, that the date may not have been.
Yeah.
But it is.
I have a feeling that they.
Yeah.
That's right, they used the original, the last date. Anyway, well, I'm initiating the pages on the condition that the work proceeded in accordance with plans initialed by the chair, and I mentioned the landscaping plans as well. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye in favor?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.